probably you already know what hoisting is. But in an interview, when someone asks about hoisting, they don't ask what hoisting is. Instead, they give you a code snippet like one of these and ask you how the behavior of that code snippet would change because of hoisting. And believe me, most of the time we get it wrong. Today we will go through all of these code snippets. To start with the basic definition of hoisting, it is that the variable declaration is moved to the top of the scope. Before going through all of these code snippets, I want you to try them out yourself. So in the video description, you'll find a link to this code pen. I want you to go through that link and try to decide what will be the value that will be logged at the places of these long comments. Don't bother about being right all the time. Don't Google anything. Just pause the video and go ahead with your perception of what should be the values that will be logged at all these places. Okay. So considering you have done that, I'll start explaining these code snippets. So let's start with the first one. So in this case, we are logging out A and B. How B will behave is like this. So the declaration part will be moved at top and definition will stay at its point. And similarly for A as well, it will behave like this. So here we will get 5 and undefined. Okay, so let's try this out. So 5 and undefined are logged. Don't be bothered about this last undefined. That is just the way DevTools lets you know that this function is not returning anything. So it's returning undefined. Let's move to the next code snippet. So in this one, the declaration will move like this. Okay, and the definition will stay at its position. So because functional scope is there, so there will be a new declaration over here and the definition will stay at its part. So this is actually how at runtime JavaScript runs the code. So it will move the declaration part using hoisting to the top of the scope. So in this case, in the first case, we will get undefined, and then this will run, and then we'll get 3 logged out, and then we will call the function. And for function, firstly it will log out undefined because of that hoisting inside the scope of the function, and here 2 will be logged out. So moving on to the next one. So with ES6 they have introduced new keywords like let and const. So those keywords are not hoisted. So var will behave like this. So that declaration will move to the top of the function and it will be like this. So over here you will get undefined, and over here you'll get 2 as the value. So moving on to let, as I said, let respects the block scope as well as the functional scope. So over here you'll get an error because let is not available outside of that scope of the if loop, and here as well you will get an error. And in case you have log statements over here as well as over here, so in this case as well you'll be getting error, and in this case it will print 23. Okay, and same thing will happen if you use const over here as well. Okay, so moving ahead with respect to function, so hoisting with respect to function keyword. So functions you can define in 2 ways in JavaScript. First is using function declaration, and then using the function expression. So here you are assigning the function to a variable. In both the cases hoisting will happen, but still they both behave differently. Why? We will just see. So in case of variable, the declaration part will move to the top. So over here, so on this line, func2 is undefined, and as you're trying to call an undefined variable, so it will give an error, and over here it will work completely fine and it will log func2 for you. Now for the function declaration, so what will happen in this case? In this case also hoisting happens, means I don't have a visual way to represent how it does happen, but what will happen is it will work completely fine and it will print func1. Okay, so declaration as well as the expression both are hoisted, but in case of declaration you can call the function before it is defined. In case of expression you will not be able to, because only the declaration of the variable is moved to the top of the scope. Moving on to the next example. So here regarding loops, in this case what happens is the declaration of I as well is moved to the top of the scope. So over here you will get undefined, and as it is var, so it doesn't respect this block scoping, it only respects the functional scope. So over here you will get the last assigned value of I, so that will be 11 I guess, right? So just be careful with these sort of for loops. So regarding for loops, using let will behave like a savior. So now this I will not be available over here, as well as it will not be available over here. So if you try to access I, it will log an error. Now in general, keeping aside the aspect of an interview, so what you should care about hoisting while programming, let's consider a scenario in which you have a function containing 50 or 100 lines. So in that case, if you are declaring all your variables at the top of the functions, so just by looking at the function declaration you come to know that okay, so I is there, so j is there, that means we will be having two for loops inside this function, so some kind of count is being generated inside, timer is there, watch is there. So all those sort of things you just get to know by the first glance inside that function. You don't need to go through all of those lines written in that function, so you can get an easier look about what that function is doing and how it will be behaving. So that's all for today, and if you guys have any questions you can ask them in the comments. I'll be happy to help.